And for our instructors, they're our main effort, and I'd like to, guys like you and others, inspire them to not only continue to push the boundaries, but know that what they're doing here is not only important to the Marine Corps, but it's helping to build them. And I'll introduce Sergeant Major here.
Hey, how you doing, Jared? Sergeant Major Moyer, Rob Moyer. I've been here for about 2 years, about 28 years in the Marine Corps. I first saw you guys through Matt Best's rap videos, his rap battle videos, which he needs to go. You guys need to do some more of those. Like see some of those here in the near future.
I've been begging him. I've been telling him that we really need to revisit Navy SEAL versus Ranger because it was the first one, and it's like, dude, it's time. It's time to do a revitalization of it.
Yeah. So that, and then that tied into obviously Article 15 clothing and the Range 15 movie, and then obviously we're all avid coffee drinkers being in the Marine Corps, so Black Rifle Coffee and everything else is how it's all tied in together. So exactly.
Yeah.
So no, I definitely inspired with what all you've done, taking your military careers into the next level post-military, and the amount of support that you provide to active duty service members and veterans. So really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Major.
Hey, sir. Nate Crouch. I'm the executive officer, Marine Attachment Fort Lee. Been in the Marine Corps 23 years. Started out enlisted, made it to E6. Warrant officer to Chief Warrant Officer 3. Now I'm an LDO major. So
that was a career.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Absolutely love everything that y'all do, and look forward to the more things that y'all will do, especially giving back to the service members in or out of the service. And that's pretty much what I got. I'm an ordnance officer.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll turn it over to you for some opening comments, Jared.
Well, you know, like I said, especially to kind of show value as to the your instructor corps and stuff like that. That's what I did from 2008 to 2012. I was a TACP tech school instructor, so the Air Education Training Command instructor teaching our tech school and entry level for TACPs. And really kind of the first point that I'd love to drive home with not only you guys and your instructor corps and the students is, you know, I identified very early on around 2005, that was my second year of being enlisted, that I really wanted to do, you know, all my time that I had outside of the military, I was devoting to something else. So I didn't get kind of sucked into hobbies like watching football or anything like that. Like from the time I was in E4 on, once I had met all of my requirements for being combat mission ready, and once all of my CDCs were done, which is your book test and your OJT that you have to do in my career field to meet your requirements to achieve what we call a 5 level, which is like a combat mission ready TACP that can deploy and do his job. Once those were all met and I had done my duty for my career as a TACP, I started diving into the visual arts. It's when I started opening up Photoshop, designing websites, creating websites, and then started doing moonlighting different jobs in the creative space for people. And it dates back all the way to 2005. So one of the things that I think is important for people to know is I was constantly utilizing my time to push forward in something that I wanted to do. And from 2005 to 2010, I literally was buying books at Books A Million and what's the other big bookstore? I can't think of it.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble. Because back then the internet was still pretty in its junior stages. So for you to have a lot of information at your fingertips, it just didn't really exist. So it was still books. So like when I learned video editing and animation and things like that, there wasn't a search feature. Like I couldn't go, ooh, how do I do this? It was, I had to comb through these books to find, you know, when I would hit a roadblock or a problem or have a crashing problem with Final Cut, like the software that I first learned on how to edit video on, it was like, the internet was still very junior, so you couldn't find the answers then. So it was all through these books. And when I went to the teaching command and became an instructor for tech school and finally got a more, structured schedule where I knew what my schedule was rather than being on an operational team where you're going TDY, you're training, you're going to the field, you're doing exercises constantly. That's when I really dove in and said, okay, I'm actively pursuing this as a career. And it was around 2011, 12-ish, like I had decided that success for me was I would be a gaffer on a full-length feature film one day. So like my top ceiling goal was I would be the guy that sets up lights on a movie. Now, as you can see, that changed a lot. And I ended up going way past what I ever had even imagined, even to the point of starring in a movie. That was never even on my radar when this started. But every single day, when I would get off work at the military, I would immediately go into something. I needed to learn something about the visual arts that day. So I would really structure myself to, I would not go to bed unless I did one tutorial a night on something in Photoshop or Illustrator or After Effects or Premiere. So it was like, okay, I could not end my day unless I learned one thing new in one of these pieces of software.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll ask a few questions here, but because of the era of when you got out, all this, like the veteran community has really gone through transitions, right? And I'm not talking about like pre-Iraq War era, and that's a whole other conversation. But even today, you mentioned like where you really dove into this. There was really no one doing the kind of veteran outreach or the veteran engagement that you and like Matt Best and other guys like Evan Hafer and all these other dudes have done. So did you know that there was like that this was a need, or did you just feel like this is something I had to do and I'm going to do it?
Well, the thing is so I actually started around 2008 when I started marketing for the tactical industry and military companies. So at the time, our podcast producer, Dave Reardon, was living with me in Florida. He was a master photographer and was teaching me flash photography and such. And then my neighbor, who's now Black Rifle's creative director, Gary Stevens, was Air Force graphics, like when the Air Force had that career field. They ended up getting rid of it, but he was an AFSOX graphics guy. So we were learning everything from taking a product, photographing it, and then building a whole advertisement out of it. So as we kind of led in to 2011, 2012 timeframe, that is when Gary and I had this company called Botstick Collective, which was just an advertising and film firm, a film and design firm for the tactical industry. And what we provided that other people didn't back then was, hey, I actually did this. So when we would get clients like Tactical Tailor, Grey Ghost Gear, or 511 or anything like that, they were no longer having to send reps out to manage how the gear looked or set up or anything like that. It was a fire and forget with us because I knew exactly when they sent an ammo pouch, I knew where it went. I knew how to put it on a plate carrier. I knew how to photograph it to show exactly how they would want it. So that really built our name first up. And as I was working through between 2012 and 2013, I had done some video work for one of the big premier firearms training courses, which back then there was only about 4. So this is in the very infant stages of kind of the tactical industry as it started its climb to reaching its peak around 2015. But I started interfacing with all these companies, for the first time in my career. Like I'm meeting with CEOs of 511 and Tactical Tailor, Grey Ghost Gear, and 215 Gear, and all these companies that supply the military with the equipment and gear that they need. So I started hearing kind of their marketing campaigns, their pitches, what they were doing, and then myself and Gary and others were all working on a lot of these campaigns is for the actual products, like taking the photos and building the advertisements and stuff. And what I saw kind of rounding out in 2013 is the only forward-facing brands the military had were very chest feeder. So it was very, I'm a Spartan, I am a warrior, I'm combat, I'm this, I'm that. And it was always very macho and just kind of aura around we're crazy soldiers and stuff like that. So when I met Matt, we both discussed this, and it was, hey, no one takes a comedic approach to this. No one's being, the sketch comedy groups like WKUK and Good Neighbor and things like that. Some of the very early viral YouTube sketch comedy groups, none of them did military humor. So that was a gap that I would constantly pitch some of these big brands that, hey, what if we did a comedy video? And they were like, no, we can't do that. I mean, the true history of Article 15 is we put that idea on the plate of a major company in the tactical industry, and they told us it would fail, and no, not interested. That sounds really dumb.
Yeah.
And about 4 years later, they went bankrupt. So, so it was a taboo thing to approach tactical industry advertising with comedy. And when we did it, you saw the audience's response. It was like, well, this has never existed before. And at the time, I was about to be promoted to an E6. Matt got out as an E5 and was contracting for the agency, and Evan was an E7 in the Guard. So if you look at how our comedy is, like the Sergeant Major said, one of the first videos he saw was one of our rap battles. Our comedy was kind of mid-tier 30 plus adult NCO comedy. It wasn't boot camp stories. So now what we're seeing, we're almost going on our 8th to 9th year of doing this. We're seeing all the people that had first seen us are now E9s and O5s and O6s and things like that. So it's very funny when you start looking at the actual demographics of who stumbled on us and when. And I attribute it to the fact that our comedy was a little bit more adult rather than basic training 18-year-olds.
It's interesting. Yeah, you bring up a good point, because one of the challenges the Marine Corps has is that we have a high turnover rate. So a lot of Marines are considered what we call first term. And many of the Marines that we train here at Fort Lee, that our instructors train, are going to get out of the Marine Corps in 3 to 4 years. And so what ends up happening is that you're just pumping out students at the cyclic rate, and then the Marines do their business in the service and they get out. But I think in many ways the attitude has changed, where a Marine who's transitioning out of the service says, okay, maybe contracting isn't the only thing I can do. I have all these other talents, and I think it's fitting that like Black Rifle Coffee is so popular with the military, because anyone who's been in the military knows that that's like it's in every office. Coffee is. It's in every forward operating base. It's in every ship out at sea. So coffee is like a common thing. But when these Marines get out, there's much that they can bring to the world or their communities or an industry that isn't just like, all right, I'm gonna post security on some fob, and that's like all I'm really skilled to do. There's a lot more that our Marines and airmen and soldiers and so on and so forth can bring to the table. I think you guys have kind of broken ground in many ways on a lot of that industry, or multiple different industries.
Well, also though, I would say that the best piece of advice I could give to guys that are going to get out after first term or second term is you have to kind of break down early on before you get out, like start deciding what you want to do and start researching that industry. And then what you need to do is you need to understand what you truly bring to the table coming from a one-term enlistment. Like, because Your management skills may be there, they may not, because you're looking at E4, E5, maybe E6 if you were a fast tracker. But what you do bring to the table in a corporate world or civilian world is, number one, you know how to take orders and you know how to just make things happen with little to no support. Like, you know how to be left alone with just a goal and you can do it. And you know how to essentially suck it up. Like, so those are qualities in people that most civilians don't possess, because most civilians are used to a track record that is, if something is not the way I like it, I quit, or I leave, or I'm done with this. I don't need this. Whereas a military guy that has a minimum of 4 years, we know how to just suck it up and go, well, this ain't that bad. It could be worse. Like, our attitude is, and for our ability to outwork the civilian counterparts is literally effortless, because we are so used to being told at 6 p.m., hey, we're not going home till 9. Oh, hey, we're not going home till 11. Hey, we're not going home till 1. Like, well, when you get in the civilian world, like, you start realizing that what you were accustomed to and trained to, oh, wow, this means I'm shining now. Just because I stayed later, before I didn't leave until something was finished, because I'm used to that style of leadership and management. And so that's what I would instill in guys, that if your plan is to do 4 years and get out, is don't have unreal expectations of the resume, because that resume is very, very empty when you start filling it out and saying, okay, I was an infantry squad leader or fire team leader. Like, you can stretch it as much as you want, but if you are researching the careers that you want to go into, and you're looking at the industry that you want to enter, and you're learning about this before you get out, and you're setting yourself up with the right education avenues and the right vocational training, and then you really understand what it is you bring to the table, like, that is going to make you successful. Because being on the other side of that interview desk now for the last 7 years, I'm going to take someone that sits in front of me and goes, well, I will work until I figure it out and come to you with a solution, rather than somebody that hands me a 40-page resume.
Yeah, no, that's interesting perspective you have now. I would assume that you have, in your capacity now, when you sit across from a young former Marine or soldier or wherever it may be, and they kind of drop that, well, I was a grunt, or I was a mechanic. And there's almost like an expectation that you need to hire me, or you need to take me on because I was that. And I think you bring up a good point where not only do we need to recognize that, yeah, our service was awesome, it was important, it was everything it was supposed to be for that time and place, but that's not necessarily, that may open the door, but not necessarily to get me through the threshold.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot, sir, with my own friends. You know, I did 15 years before I ended up getting out. And, you know, as an instructor, I put about 350 TACPs through the course over that 4 years. So I know a lot of people in my career field. And I also did a stint as the president of the TACP Association and managed 3 of our memorial reunions. So it's like, I was bouncing around almost the entire career field, but I have a lot of friends to this day that are peer group guys that are old, that are even older than me, or people I put through early days through tech school that are now mid-tier NCOs that are like, hey man, I'm thinking about getting out. Could I get a job? And I look at them and go, do you know how to use Photoshop? Do you know how to hold a camera? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? Like, no, I could be a JTAC. Okay, well, I don't need any airstrikes controlled for the coffee company. And you coming to me with that skill set does nothing for me. So as much as I would love to help a friend out, I don't, if they weren't pushing themselves in another avenue, whether it was finance, you know, logistics, business, visual arts, sorry, dude, I don't have anything for you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was going to ask, I know you had talked about skills that you used for what you're doing now. How does that correlate when the skills that you used in the military is kind of like a bargaining chip, or how it equates when you're talking to the big companies to get to do things for people that's never been in the service? So let's say, y'all went and the big company said no on the proposal. Was that other people that had been in the military service, or was that just, lay civilian people in the corporate business?
No, that was other people that had been in military service, but there is, Black Rifle is extremely unique in the fact that its current size now, which is over 450 employees, we still are not a board of mindless suits. And that is what you run into in big companies is they do not, Evan has never let go the heartbeat of our message to the end user. He has never relinquished that. So no one is ever going to tell him different. No one knows this space better than us because we have kept ourselves in it. If you see what I mean. So it's like I even still run into this a lot during consulting gigs because a lot of people hit me up and companies ask me to come in and help with marketing because everybody looks at Black Rifle's marketing as hyper successful. Man, you guys grew a coffee. Like, you have people wearing coffee. Like, that's unheard of. So I have had a lot of consulting things where I'm just shut down by a no when these people that are giving that no don't even understand who their customer is to begin with. So it's like, that's what you see a lot in the corporate world is in the corporate world, everybody is hyper focused to stay in their box that's super safe and super mundane so that nobody can attack them for one way or the other. Whereas, we are a more, hey, let's go. This is us. If you like us, great. If you don't, cool. We don't care.
Wow.
So there's a lot of coffee companies out there. There's a lot of military clothing, Grunt Style, Till Valhalla Project, all that stuff. A lot of veteran-owned businesses that around the same thing you guys focus around. How do you stay relative? How do you stay the number one in that business, in that industry?
Okay, so there's quite a few things there. Yes, when we first started Article 15, there was only 4. You had Ranger Up, Grunt Style, 9 Line, Article 15. So we started in kind of, and even then, we were the only ones that went funny. We were the only ones that said, hey, we're going to be funny. Now, we were one of the very first to do coffee. And that was through Article 15, we launched Dark Roasted Freedom with Evan. And the whole reason that we did that was because Evan had studied coffee for almost 10 years. It was his hobby. He had a little green book. For 10 years, he had roast profiles that he was roasting 1 pound of coffee at a time in his basement. He was bringing a roaster with him on deployments, and he was studying coffee. He was ordering beans from different regions at different times, different farms, different countries, everything, and he was studying coffee. So one of the biggest things that makes us different right off the bat, Evan knows coffee. And he knows coffee because it's his obsession. Still to this point, he flies to Central and South America and he meets farm owners and he talks about how they're growing their crops and he tests different beans and everything. He has his hands inside coffee saying, I'm going to make you the best coffee that I possibly can. And that's something I'm yet to see another coffee brand in the veteran space even attempt. It mostly is just outsourced and packaged. Whereas all of us, we're roasting our coffee. We have a Q grader, like Edwin Parnell is an ex-Special Forces guy that actually has his Q grade certification. And there's less than 15 of those in the United States, I believe. So when it comes to just the product first, we made sure that the coffee was the best that it could be and that we're pushing the limits with it, especially with the ECS now. The exclusive coffee subscription, that's all Evan Select stuff. Evan's doing 1,000 pounds at a time that he's finding some of the best stuff around the world and then doing this thing. And then the third thing I would say is we are artists. I've seen plenty of people that have started a t-shirt brand or apparel brand or anything that just spew out something to put on a shirt. It's a clever saying or something like that. But all of us are graphic artists. Like we understand art and we like cool visuals and we have crazy ideas and we are constantly ideating. You know, right now we're sitting on well over 350 new shirt designs that are just in the queue for Black Rifle that are just crazy. And I think that's the difference is number one, you know, we are hyper, the three of us, myself, Matt, and Evan, are hyper creators. Like, you know, I can spew out 100 movie ideas right now if you were like, go. And that's how we keep this momentum, is we keep reinventing. We're not giving you guys the same things. As you see, if you look at our content in the last few years, we have morphed from kind of that skit comedy to now little short movies that we're putting out. And then later this year, we're going to be doing another full film. So it's like, at the end of the day, all of us know how to operate a camera, know how to edit a video, we know how to take a picture, and we know how to sit down with Adobe Illustrator and design a new design. And that's the core of this whole thing, is constantly reinventing yourself and having new things for the audience to engage with.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, those are some good points. While you were talking, your expansive, like outside the box kind of thinking, and the way you guys cultivate that at Black Rifle and all the other vets that are there, it shows, first of all. But two, that's like something that organizations like the Marine Corps, I believe, does well. We encourage people to pursue things that are maybe on the edge, but could have a meaningful impact. We just got to give it time and space to grow and become what it's supposed to be. And the Marine Corps has done a pretty good job at nurturing that. And that's one thing I try to instill amongst our team is let's pursue these ideas, as even though they may be a little more on the edge of what we're used to. We don't know where this is headed, and as we continue, you know, I've been in 20 plus years now. We know one thing for damn sure, and that is we don't know what the future fight is exactly going to look like. We don't know how the enemy is going to fight us, whoever they may be. And if there's any common denominator in all of our experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, is that the enemy gets a vote. And so being able to be to pursue these kind of unusual, or I wouldn't say unusual, but maybe these outside the box ideas, like you guys are doing so well, gives an inspiration to our team to, yeah, if you're interested in something unique, pursue it, because that may be something we could use downrange.
Yeah. Hey, if you identify a problem, you better be coming with a solution.
That's right. So what's some, you mentioned briefly Black Rifle's going to do a film later this year. Is there any other, I've been to your location in North Carolina. You guys got that coffee shop and then the 9-line t-shirt.
That's in Georgia, Savannah.
Yeah, yeah. Are you guys going to do any more of those kind of coffee shop type
Yes, there's quite a few being built right now. So there's one in Dallas being built. We're looking at property in Fort Bragg. We're looking all over the place. So yes, you can expect at least 10 to 15 more by spring of next year to be good to go.
Oh wow, that's good. Okay. Yeah.
I have a kind of a, it's probably more for Evan since he's the coffee connoisseur, but you could probably interject. So I'm all about caffeine. I intake 99.9% of my liquids is caffeinated. Some people can't handle coffee such as caf, right? So what would you recommend for somebody that's on the junior varsity level of caffeine that can't handle caf?
So caf is infused with extra caffeine. So you're getting double. Now, if you just want natural, you go with a lighter roast, because the lighter the roast, the more caffeine content. Because the lighter the roast is the less time the bean has been roasted, which is taking all the moisture out. So the darker the roast, it's really a common misconstrued thing, is the darker the roast, the less caffeine there is in it, because you're just dehydrating that bean. Yeah. So Silencer Smooth, sir, I would recommend for you. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take a look at that because I ordered the calf, and that kind of jacked me up, man.
I'm the same way too. Like too much, I get irritated, like and just I'm not happy.
Yeah, it was like my TO weapon right now is like a keyboard, so it was jacking me up, man. It was but anyways, yeah, we'll look at that. Silencer Smooth, is that what it was? Yeah,
One of my favorites.
So me and Sergeant Major were talking actually earlier this morning, and it had been brought up, and I think it's funny that you brought it up earlier, is the old war horses from the two different wars. That's us now, and we're kind of going away. And it is nice to see that y'all are doing like the boot camp stories for the Marines that's never deployed, been on UDP, been at combat tour, anything like that, because I think it keeps you relevant, and it keeps us from not feeling so old too.
I know. It was pretty sad the other day. You know, it's been 14 years since my last deployment, and I started thinking, kind of in retrospect, when I came in 2003. That's like one of the guys at my unit that jumped into Panama. I'm looking at him like, oh my God, that was ancient.
yeah, that's funny. You know, that's a good point. As we age in the Marine Corps or in the Air Force or Army, there is a inevitable like drop off in that relevant combat experience. And one of the things that I think attracts many of the young Marines to, or at least our young Marines, to you and what the enterprises that you guys are involved in, is that you've kind of encapsulated that combat experience somehow. You've preserved that. It's funny when it needs to be. It's relevant, and I think that's what's the staying power that you guys have, is that it shows in your product, and that's something that our Marines look up to, and I know you guys understand that. But the other day I was talking to just the newest entry level Marines we had. They've only been in the Marine Corps a few months. They know exactly who you are.
Oh, wow.
And they know your videos. They know who Matt Best is, and they're tracking all that. And inevitably, these young guys, before they join the military, they want to, as quickly as possible, become part of the community. And so, social media is like their highway in. And they see the entire organization, the kind of the vet TVs of the world, the Black Rifle Coffees of the world, and they're trying to make sense of all that. And a few weeks ago, when we were trying to schedule this, we had a bunch of young Marines in here, and the thing, I was surprised that they all knew exactly kind of what it was that you guys did and how closely they were following.
I am too, because I really thought that there was a gap with the young guys now. Like I felt that we are less known in the younger crowd and more in your guys' age group, just because of the humor and things like that.
Yeah, certainly. We understand at our age level, kind of what you were explaining earlier. These young guys, they don't know the backstory, and they don't know, like, I think anything past 6 months ago, they were like, oh, that's ancient history for YouTube. That stuff's got to be like in the last week posted. But they certainly recognize the impact that you guys are making, because they were here en masse and interested in seeing what you had to say.
Oh, man.
But
thanks, sir.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the latest project? I see you guys got the podcast going.
Yeah, so the Free Range American stuff is still going strong. We've transitioned. Ross and Dan are taking Drinking Bros. We're rolling forward with Free Range American, which Free Range American is just a little bit more on brand for us. Obviously, as we get bigger in the company and things like that, we need a little bit more cleaner image. Drinking Bros is kind of fun, slapstick, Howard Stern style, where FRA is more along the lines of Joe Rogan, like bringing on really interesting guests, bringing on recipients of really cool military medals and people that have done cool things and telling their story. Because again, like, I think back when I was a young guy, and the things that I looked to as a young TACP were the guys that were our Silver Star recipients. We had about 7 of them. And I would read those citations over and over and over again as a young TAC B and just be like, that's what I have to be. That's the mold I have to fit. And, you know, with things dying down, we kind of don't have that as much anymore. So it's like we have to figure out a way to give these guys the right mentors, the right heroes, and the right motivation.
Well, no, that's a good point. Yeah, we certainly we should do a better job of recognizing our veterans who have not only left the service but have done incredible things on the battlefield. And I've listened to a couple of your guys' podcasts about that. And you guys do bring some interesting people on the show that definitely dive into those areas and continue to serve an inspiration for a lot of our teams. I'll wrap it up here, but I'll leave you with the final comment, man. And again, I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Yes, anytime, sir. I mean, for the instructors of your school, the biggest thing that I learned being an instructor for 4 years in a very high attrition rate career field, and I learned it a little too late, was I was there to teach and not attrit. And I really wish I could go back as an instructor at an older age with more maturity to understand that, because I think that my first 2 years as a TAC B instructor, I was way too hard on the kids. I was mean. I wasn't there fulfilling my mission. I wasn't there teaching. I mean, it didn't click in my head that these guys, that I was in their shoes, not having a clue what a plugger GPS was, or a Prick 113 or 119 was, and someone just screaming at me to figure it out is not showing me how this thing operates. So keeping that instructor mindset that you are there training your replacements and you will be with them later once you're done with this tour. So always have that in the back of your mind when you're teaching. And for the young guys, know that this is the beginning of your career, and this is what's gonna kind of set you on your path. And if you're not focused and you're not in it for the right things, you're never gonna get there. So keep that mindset of you're there to do the job that you said that you wanted to do. So even when it gets hard, that was your decision.
Well, that's well said. I appreciate it, Jared. We'll definitely share this with the team. And again, thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir. Sergeant Major.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Jared.